Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com with some alarming news about the climate. Twitter is featuring this story out of London: 9 major cities that could be underwater by the year 2030. Climate crisis. With sea levels rising worldwide, several major metropolises are at risk of being submerged. And wow, it looks like Venice is already underwater. Let's take a look at the 9 cities we'll have to wave goodbye to. Number 9 on their list of cities to drown is Savannah, Georgia. Let's take a look at what's happened in Savannah over the past 4 decades. Google Earth provides a nice service where you can compare images from 1984 and more recent years like 2020. As you can see, there's been essentially no change in the coastline around Savannah over the last 37 years. There's no indication that Savannah is drowning. Number 8 on their list is Georgetown, Guyana. Just like with Savannah, there's been essentially no change in the coastline over the last 37 years. Number 7 in their list of cities to drown by the year 2030 is Bangkok. And there's been essentially no change in the coastline around Bangkok since 1984. Number 6 on the list is Kolkata, India. There's been essentially no change in the coastline around Kolkata since 1984. Number 5 on their list is Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. Since 1984, there's been essentially no change in the coastline around Ho Chi Minh City. Number 4 on their list is Venice. Venice has seen no change in their coastline over the past 37 years. Number 3 on their list is New Orleans. There's been very little change in the topography around New Orleans since 1984. Basra, Iraq is number 2 on their list. And nothing is changing around Basra except that it seems to be a lot greener now than it was in 1984. Their top city to drown is Amsterdam. The Netherlands have been below sea level for hundreds of years, but a series of dikes keeps them from flooding, and there's been essentially no change in the coastline around Amsterdam over the last 37 years. The people who wrote this article got their images from the fraudsters at Climate Central, who also have predicted that New York would be underwater. The Statue of Liberty itself is quite safe. What's at threat is our liberty because of climate fraudsters telling lies about the climate. The article has a photograph of Venice under a few inches of water, but there was a larger flood at the same spot almost 200 years ago in 1825. Also in 1825 was one of the worst Atlantic hurricanes on record. There was massive loss of life and structures in the Caribbean from that storm. 1825 is also famous for the worst forest fire in Canada's history. The Miramichi Fire of 1825 burned up 2.5 million acres of New Brunswick and the United States state of Maine in about 9 hours. That fire was much worse than anything North Americans have experienced in recent decades. The headline is 9 cities that could be underwater by the year 2030. All kinds of things could happen by the year 2030. For example, climate science could become a serious field of study. Or monkeys could fly out of Al Gore's rear. But neither of those occurrences are very likely. One thing that is certain is that the meeting in Glasgow this week is a complete farce and it has nothing to do with science. Scary pictures make for pretty effective propaganda. People see these pictures and imagine they're going to drown. Well, I've got a few pictures of my own, and they weren't generated by computer models, they're actual historical references. This is what Miami looked like in 1926, when the city actually was underwater. This is what Louisiana looked like in 1927, when much of the state actually was underwater. This is what Pueblo, Colorado looked like in 1927 when the city was underwater and 1,500 people drowned. This is what Toronto looked like in October 1954 when nearly 100 people drowned. Here's Providence, Rhode Island in 1938 underwater. This is what Peterborough, New Hampshire looked like in 1938. And here's a scary picture from Vermont in 1927. I could spend the next few hours showing pictures like this, but that's not the point of this video. Here's a January 1907 article from the U.S. Weather Bureau. Is not honesty the wisest policy? It's wrong to mutilate or suppress the record of an observation of a phenomenon of nature, but it's also wrong to make a bad use of the record. In fact, it is the misuse of meteorological data, not the observing or publishing, that constitutes a crime against the community. Observation and careful research are to be encouraged as useful. Misrepresentations are to be avoided as harmful. The independent press as the voice of the people should be not only vox populi, but vox dei, repressing all cheats and hoaxes, defending the truth and the best interests of the whole nation as against the self-interest of a few. There's nothing new about climate superstition and fraud. It's been going on for centuries. Toto is proud of his role exposing the cheats and hoaxes of climate alarmists. Toto is a member of the independent press and one of the voices of the people, or at least the voices of the puppies. You can visit Toto, Kyrie, and Caesar on the web at realclimatescience.com.